Our next speaker, Ken Olsen, is the lead volunteer for the Corvallis Benton County Library's After School Maker Club, where local youths explore programming, electronics, robotics, and 3D printing. He also conducts workshops for chicktech.org, an organization that encourages local high school girls to pursue careers in technology, and leads workshops for middle school students in OSU's pre-college programs, including STEM Academy and Winter Wonderings. He is a former nuclear-trained submariner and has just finished 19 years at HP as a self-taught software technician. Please join me in welcoming Ken Olsen.
That sounds like a great guy. You should hire him. All right, thanks. I don't know how to do Apple. That looks good to me. All right, this is an Arduino microcontroller here. This is a programmable computer. I didn't trust my sense of time as we do a talk like this in front of people, so I programmed it so these 8 LEDs will slowly extinguish themselves as my 10 minutes comes up. So for those of you in the math part of STEM, if you can figure out how to divide 10 minutes into 8 LEDs and make that in microseconds, that's a little bit of a challenge. So what I did is I wrote an algorithm. I don't know the answer. I wrote an algorithm that figures it out for me, such that I can tell it any amount of time and any number of LEDs that are there, and it will figure it out for me. That's what I love about computers is they like to solve hard problems for you, and they don't seem to mind doing that. So in the mid 1970s, in order to get access to a computer, you'd have to go to a college or a big business and talk to that computer, which is called a mainframe, over a teletype here, which was just a glorified typewriter. You'd type in commands. My father was a professor here at OSU and at Bozeman State University, would bring us in the evenings and let us log into the computers there, and if they weren't busy, there was a game account, and you could play games, and the computer would print out some information, and then you would communicate with it by just typing into it. And I've got an example there showing the game of Star Trek, which was one of my favorites. Very primitive by today's standards, but it captured my imagination. So if you could go back in time, and we're talking about 40 years, what would you tell that young child who is typing into that teletype that could prepare them for the future that they're going to face? So if we fast forward 40 years now, we've gone from that mainframe computer, which was in a room by itself, and talked to it, and now you have the equivalent amount of power in your pocket, and I'd dare say about 90% of you have this kind of power in your pocket. Has a graphical screen, interacts with touch, can play music and movies, and is connected to computers around the world through the internet. And if you really needed to, you could call somebody on it too. That's pretty amazing. And so that's the science fiction of my childhood has become reality today. So thinking forward, what advice could you give a child today that would prepare them for the future in 40 years for what they need to know to survive in that kind of environment? I've been very excited about the prospects of 3D technology. That seems to be a big buzz, and it's a lot of fun to learn and do with the kids. But thinking about the progression of the mainframe to the cell phone, and thinking about how that might occur with 3D printing, it's really almost impossible to impossible to imagine what that's going to be like or how to prepare a child for that. So I bought my first computer when I was 15 years old, using paper out money. I was fascinated with programming. I taught myself assembly language from a book. I had no interest in going to college, which I'm sure disappointed my father a bit, but I shopped around the military. I did well enough on the test. They wanted me to be a tank mechanic or an airplane mechanic, or the Navy offered me a nuclear submariner, which sounded pretty good. They had a couple of ratings that qualified. I was hoping to get electronics technician, wanting to learn more about computers. Uncle Sam had other ideas for me. They made me a machinist mate. And I trained nuclear power school in Florida, and then went to Idaho to work on the prototype reactors there. And then additionally, I was offered a chance to learn chemistry and health physics. There's a group of about 5 people on the submarine that maintain the steam plant chemistry and radiation monitoring. And that's a pretty amazing job for a high school graduate. And it's one I'm glad. I say I'm glad I did it, but I would never want to do it again. It was quite an experience. So fast forward 12 years, I get out of the Navy, come back to Oregon here, and it quickly became apparent to me that there was no way that anybody was going to give me that much responsibility again unless I did have some formal education. So I went back to college part-time, LB, while I was working. Took the classes I needed to round out my education. I took writing, literature, and history, all the stuff that you don't really need to know to operate a nuclear reactor. And what I found out was I really enjoyed it. You know, having dodged college coming out of high school to go to it, and really enjoyed it, got straight A's. I'm sure if I'd gone to college out of high school, I would have been miserable and done very poorly. But going as an adult, having a goal and some life experience, I really did well and enjoyed it. And the associate's degree I earned helped me land a job at Hewlett-Packard as a chemistry technician. Not that you need history or literature to do chemical analysis. The Navy had given me the skills I needed to go to and the college had just given me the piece of paper I needed to have the employers look at me seriously. So I never gave up my love for computers. I always had one, always playing with it. At home, I was programming in Linux, setting computers up, learning to program. And at work, as a chemistry technique, I was using computers to gather the data, analyze it, sort it, anything to do to help tame the amount of data that comes out of the instruments. And it always saves time, it reduces mistakes, and helps you identify trends. And then before I knew it, I actually got a position with the engineering modeling analysis group, helping them work with all their simulation data. So amazingly enough, my hobbies and my passions had become my job. So it's about this time that I took up model railroading. This is the artsy part of my talk here, model railroading. I created a small working railroad based on the Hull Oak Steam Mill, which is just down the road in Monroe, Oregon there. They give tours. It's a trip back in time. My layout was unique in the fact that it used a programmable microcontroller like we have here. And the controller was actually a Wii nunchuck. And so kids could control it quite easily. So doing model railroad really taught me a lot about being creative and finding joy in your passion. I learned to paint realistic landscaping. I enjoyed the electronics and programming of it, obviously, and I enjoyed researching and writing about it as well. And I picked up a lot about photography. So I started a blog about the mill and my train set. I entered some photography contests, wrote an article for a magazine, and gave seminars about it. And I took the layout to train shows and maker fairs and let kids play with it, which was really exciting for me. And it was in 2013 that the Corvallis Library had their first maker fair there. The former Corvallis librarian, Robin Fosdick, organized it, and in visiting with her, I found out that she was interested in starting a Makers Club and taking my passion for electronics and programming to help children learn about it. And so I've spent the last 3 years doing these kind of workshops that they mentioned in the introduction here, so I don't want to talk too much about them because I can see my LEDs are running out of time here. What we do at the after-school program is kind of tech-heavy. We do electronics and programming. We've done some soft circuit things. But I think what's most important is the creativity and the problem-solving skills that the kids learn in doing this. This is Erica. She was one of my early 3D workshop participants, and she's a Corvallis Maker Club regular. She designed this house. It's 2 stories, has a staircase, working doorway. It was so complex we had to get extra printing time on the OSU's printer to get it printed out for her, but it was totally amazing. For a school homework assignment, she designed a model of a krypton atom, and the electron shell spun around the nucleus. She's able to do things with the design software that I didn't think were possible, and I love that. Here's Oscar in the upper left corner there. Oscar's one of the Philomath Makers Club mainstay. He's always bringing his friends. He's unafraid to take anything apart and is equally unafraid to dive into computer code to change it to his will. This week he was explaining to me his plans to launch a rocket from a weather balloon, understanding that if he got up above most of the atmosphere, the rocket would go faster, and therefore he might be able to get it into orbit. So I think we need to get him hooked up with the OSU Rocket Club. I love his enthusiasm and his creative inventiveness. So as I mentioned in the introduction, after 19 years at Hewlett-Packard, my position was eliminated. That caught me kind of by surprise, but it shouldn't really, right? Technology is changing. HP is struggling to adapt. The ability to change and to learn new things and develop new technologies is a key trait that will be needed by our children. So I've just recently found a job up in Vancouver with a small engineering design firm. And they're actually hiring me on as an electronics technician, which, if you remember, I talked about when I went in the Navy is what I wanted to be. And so once again, I can say that my hobbies and my passion have become my career, which is exciting. The only bitter part of that is that I'm having to leave all these Corvallis programs behind. I know they will continue to do well, and they are looking for volunteers if anybody's interested in helping. It is so rewarding, I can tell you. Let's see. And I think I'm out of LEDs here, aren't I? So let's go back and just talk briefly about that original question I posed. So if I could travel back to time and talk to that child about what would prepare him for the future, I would tell him the same thing that I would tell the children today that I teach in my classes that have the cell phones in their pocket. I would tell them that the future is going to be unpredictably amazing, and that they need to find and follow their passions, whatever they might be. They need to be patient, persistent, and resourceful as they pursue those passions, and to never miss an opportunity to learn something new, and to never miss an opportunity to share something you've learned with someone else. Creating is nothing without sharing. Thank you.